Hey, what's happening, guys? Good morning, everybody. You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. Today is Thursday. I believe it's February 16th, right? Yeah, Thursday, February 16th, 2023. We're going to be covering the news from the last 24, 48 hours. A lot of interesting stuff to talk about today. We're going to be talking about how the markets closed yesterday. Crypto and Bitcoin specifically are really rallying after a week of kind of a lot of FUD from the SEC. A lot of talk about banning staking, banning stable coins, going after certain crypto exchanges. Bitcoin is up over 9% on the 24-hour chart. Ethereum up 7%, BNB up 5.6%. Crypto's kind of surging in the last 24 hours. We're going to be talking about the economy. One of the stories I wanted to talk about today, I saw some numbers came out yesterday, and I think Chef Robert Irvine, the guy from Restaurant Impossible, he was talking about this the other day. Not only are seniors facing food insecurity, right? Inflation is out of control. Food is costing more. The media is telling seniors to skip meals. But apparently 25% of active military families are food insecure. They're worrying about if they have enough money for groceries, where their next meal is going to come from. How sad is it that we're sending over $100 billion to Ukraine? We're sending money to a foreign country, foreign people, a foreign military to fight a fake proxy war. And all the while, we're not even paying our own military members enough so that when they're off serving, their families have enough money to buy food here back at home. And if you guys remember, probably within the last 6-8 months, the military themselves actually came out and told military members, if you're having trouble affording groceries, get on SNAP, get on food stamps, get on government benefits. You have people who are serving our country, who are sacrificing, taking time away from their families, risking their lives, and we're telling them, sorry, we don't pay you enough, get on food stamps as we send another $100 billion over to Ukraine. It's absolutely despicable. We're going to be talking about the tech layoffs. We're up to 364 tech companies who have laid off over 105,000 employees. One of you guys had sent me, I forget the name, but one of you guys had sent me an article about Lufthansa. All their flights were grounded yesterday. Apparently, airports in Germany were hit by a DDoS attack. Today, we're going to be getting the PPI numbers, producer price inflation numbers. Retail sales were up 3%, which is weird. What kind of all of this signals is that what the Fed is doing is not helping to fight inflation. They're going to wind up having to raise rates higher and keep them elevated for longer. We're going to be talking about natural gas prices skyrocketing, especially in California, and a whole lot of other things in today's video. So I got my morning coffee here, and we are going to be discussing the news today. Excuse me. So before we get started, shout out to the sponsor of today's video, ExpressVPN. I actually use ExpressVPN. I've probably been using ExpressVPN for the past 2 or 3 years. I've tried other VPNs in the past. I like ExpressVPN. Super easy to use. They have apps for mobile, tablets, and your smart TV. One of the easiest VPNs I've found to use. And why might you want to use a VPN? So, I manage affiliate programs. So a lot of times affiliates in my affiliate programs will try to run Google ads, which is against most affiliate terms, using brand names. So basically they're trying to steal business and kind of cash in on affiliate sales that they shouldn't be cashing in on. Well, the smart affiliates who do this will, if they know you're based in Chicago or LA or New York, they'll purposely set up their ads so they don't run in your marketplace. So I use ExpressVPN. I'm in Chicago, but I'll log in as if I'm in New York or California and try to catch affiliates committing affiliate fraud on the affiliate programs that I run. I also do some local SEO for various businesses. Most of them are local to me, but some of them are across the country. So if I want to see what searches are looking like in New York or California, I can log in with my ExpressVPN, and I can kind of see what search results would look like there. Why else might one want to use ExpressVPN? Well, in the past, I've used it to access crypto exchanges that I otherwise wouldn't be able to access, hide browsing history from your ISP, change your location to access websites or certain content on platforms like Netflix, to protect your privacy from Wi-Fi operators, your workplace, your school, to add an extra layer of protection on public Wi-Fi, and to avoid price discrimination. A lot of times if you search for flights from a certain city or Airbnbs from a certain city, they'll be higher than if they were from another city. Also, oftentimes after your initial search, the prices continue to get higher. So using a VPN, you can avoid price discrimination, and lastly, to fight censorship. So link in the description box below to ExpressVPN. You can sign up for it just for a month, or you can get the best deal. I think they give you a couple free months if you sign up for an entire year. So link in the description box below. Let's hop into today's news. So the Dow closed up 38 points yesterday. NASDAQ closed up 1%. S&P 500 closed up 0.28%. Again, crypto rallied yesterday. Bitcoin up over 9% on a 24-hour chart. Bitcoin is currently sitting at over $24,500. And it's been a rough week for crypto, but it's rallying back strong. Ethereum up almost 7% and BNB up 5.6%. MSN.com article, bad news, it looks like inflation is stubborn and the Fed will have to react. So we got job numbers coming in hot, even though those job numbers are likely fake. Inflation continues to rise. You know, a lot of people were planning on a Fed pivot. A lot of people were acting like the Fed only raising interest rates 25 basis points meant that a pivot was on the way. A lot of people have been doing what everybody always says not to do, fighting the Fed. People seem to be trying to call Jerome Powell's bluff. The Fed appears pretty serious that they're going to continue raising rates and they're going to keep rates elevated higher. We talked about in yesterday's video at the current rates in which inflation is quote unquote supposedly coming down. I don't think most of us believe it's coming down, but the Fed and the media tells us it's coming down. Well, at the rate it's coming down, inflation is going to remain high through 2026. And one thing I always want to hammer home, I think a lot of people think prices are going to come down. Once prices go up, they typically stay up. Even Hershey's came out and said, prices aren't going to come down. Maybe they'll stop rising at 15% a year and only rise at 2% per year, like the Fed hopes for. But prices are not coming down. This is the new reality. If you are struggling right now, things are not going to get better. You got to figure out how to live more frugally. You got to create some extra forms of revenue. And one thing that's kind of funny, the media, the banks, Goldman Sachs, they keep trying to tell us that a soft landing is very possible. A soft landing is more likely. 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, the narrative was that a soft landing is very unlikely. We're likely to head into a recession. Most CEOs, most major banks were saying 75% of a recession, of 75% chance of a recession. It's almost certain that we're going to have a recession. And now all of a sudden, the discussion is changing. And, there's actually a very strong chance that we're going to have a soft landing. Look at the economy continues to get worse and worse. Inflation continues to get worse and worse. Retail sales numbers came in 3% stronger. That doesn't mean the economy is doing better. When butter's costing 60% more, when eggs are costing 80% more, when frozen vegetables are costing 18% more, obviously clothing's costing more, everything's costing more. So when prices are, when sales are increasing 3%, that actually means less people are shopping. The people who are shopping are spending less money, but everything's costing more. So obviously that's going to bring retail sales numbers up. Obviously they aren't adjusted for inflation. It's kind of funny how, again, this narrative is changing to a soft landing is possible. Goldman Sachs is telling us soft landing is possible. We'll probably avoid a recession. Yet at the same time, they did have plans to roll out their own credit card. They were getting into the high interest checking account game. And they've shut down both of those divisions. If they truly believed that the economy was strong and we weren't going to head into a recession, they would be moving forward with these businesses. Let me get a sip of my coffee here. Okay, let's see. What else do we got here? So it's going to go through our notes here. During the Mexican beer cough, people were saying, why are markets going up 33% a year when we're locked down, nobody's traveling, everything's shut down, nothing's being produced. And what we were told that markets look forward. Wall Street doesn't represent Main Street. Don't fight the Fed. Don't fight the Fed has always been a narrative. But right now, the media and the banks are pretty much trying to spur on these delusional markets and telling people to fight the Fed. Let's see, what do we got here? Now things are ugly, and the Fed has said they're going to keep raising rates and keep them high. Recent job numbers and inflation show they have no choice but to do so. Again, people were hoping for a pivot. They thought the 25 basis point hike last round was the start of a pivot. They are going to crash the markets. Let's get into layoffs. Thus far this year, we have 364 tech companies who have laid off a total of 105,514 employees. Let's look at some of the recent layoffs, some of the bigger names. Wix laid off 370 employees. That is 6% of the company. Neon laid off 210. That's 9% of the company. DigitalOcean laid off 210% of the company. Sprinkler laid off 104% of the company. Milk Run laid off 20% of the company. Tackle laid off 15% of their company. Commerce Hub laid off 371. That's 31% of the company. Hacker Earth laid off 8% of the company. And a company by the name of FableCare, they laid off 70% of the company. Now, I know we've kind of gotten used to these huge job numbers, right? Like, Twitter laid off 11,000, Facebook laying off 10,000, Google laying off 7,700 or whatever it was. So when you hear Wix laying off 370, we kind of become jaded. It doesn't seem like a huge number. But keep in mind, that's 370 people who no longer have a good, high-paying job. If those people have spouses, now all of a sudden that 370 will run up to 400. There's almost 800 people who are affected by this. If people have kids, that multiplies it. Even a layoff of 370 is affecting thousands of people. When you look at, it's affecting people's significant others or spouses. It's affecting people's kids. And those people that got laid off, maybe they're not going to go out to dinner. Maybe they're not going to go out to the bar. And that's going to hurt the local businesses and the places that they spend their money as well. One of you guys had sent me an article yesterday. Lufthansa grounded all their flights for a period of time yesterday. I didn't have a ton of time to really dig into the story, so if you guys know more details about this, feel free to drop them in the comments section below. But I believe there was an airport, or Germany as a whole was hit by a DDoS attack. We talk about complex systems not being able to run. We have all these planes almost colliding on runways, almost colliding in the skies, power stations being shut down, and again, now it's spreading to Germany too. The other week we had Canada, where their air traffic control system went down a couple hours after ours. Now airports in Germany are being hit by DDoS attacks. Thank you for whoever sent me that article. And if you guys find interesting articles, if there's an interesting story you want to be included in one of these videos, you can always email me at rulesforrebels@gmail.com. So we got retail sales up 3%. Again, these are not adjusted for inflation. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? We know that savings rates are at all-time lows. The amount of credit card debt people have is at all-time highs. The rates people are paying on that debt is at all-time highs. The number of people who carry credit card debt over month is nearly half of people, almost 50% of people. And that number has gone up substantially over the past year, 2 years, 3 years. So how are people spending more money? Well, a couple potential explanations for this. One is people are maxing out their credit cards, and those cards just aren't maxed out yet. Some people maybe have some gift cards from Christmas. I think we saw an uptick in like retail clothing sales. Maybe people are using some of those Christmas gift cards. There are wealthy and people with money out there who have disposable income and are continuing to spend money on luxury goods. But a lot of the spending happening right now is at movies, shows, experiences, dinner, bars, coffee, etc. Gas bills are on the rise across the country, but especially skyrocketing in California. Yahoo Finance had an article yesterday about a pastor in California who opened his gas bill to find a surprise. His gas bill was over $900. The average gas bill right now is about $300 in the nation, and that's more than twice the average of January 2022. So again, everything continues to get more expensive. I talked in yesterday's video about, it seems like a television show or a movie. It's like this much crazy stuff cannot happen in real life. Oh my gosh, it looks like we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Oh my gosh, there's Chinese spy balloons. Oh, there's been Chinese spy balloons hovering here for years. Look, there's a UFO over there. We're shooting down UFOs. A train crash, a truck crash. Now I saw an article yesterday that they're going to be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's associates. And it's funny how nobody wanted to release that before, and now all of a sudden when we want to cover up news or distract from news like this train crash that's polluting the entire eastern half of the country in Palestine, Ohio, or the fact that it looks like we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, we committed a terrorist act against an ally, against our allies. Now all of a sudden they want to distract us with the Jeffrey Epstein story. This is kind of crazy. On these videos we talk a lot about how crime is out of control in this country. I saw an article yesterday, I forget if it's New York or Canada, but they're warning people if you have a Canadian Goose jacket, people are getting robbed on the streets for their Canadian Goose jackets. I remember that was a big story years ago, but that's starting to happen again. Chicago's Mayor Lori Lightfoot came out and told residents, if you want to stop getting mugged and robbed, stop using cash. So instead of taking some accountability on what a mess Chicago is, as opposed to trying to tackle the crime problem and the murder problem in Chicago, as opposed to trying to fix the problem and, again, taking the blame she deserves for the problem, she's telling people it's your fault if you get mugged because you're using cash. And speaking of Chicago, I think we're going to get into this in a bit, but I believe it was the Daily Mail had an article talking about how OHare Airport, I'm going to be flying out of OHare Airport in about 2 weeks here. OHare Airport has turned into a homeless shelter. There's thousands of homeless people sleeping in OHare. You see people who are taking up entire sections of the airport. They basically have camp set up, all their blankets and food and clothing and everything else laid out. People got no shoes on. They're nodding out. They're passed out. Half the people look like they're dead. And that's OHare Airport. That's one of the biggest, one of the major airports in the country. I think we kind of touched on this, but food insecurity is hitting senior citizens and active military families. 25% of active military families are food insecure. And again, how sad is this? The media is telling senior citizens to cut out breakfast to save money. So much for breakfast being the most important meal of the day, right? And again, we have hundreds of billions of dollars that we can send over to Ukraine to be wasted on corruption. All the while, our military families here in the U.S. are going hungry. And we talked about in a video yesterday or 2 days ago how the military is falling short on recruitment by like 60% every year. No wonder people don't want to join the military. Not only do they not want to celebrate Trans Month and cut rainbow cakes, they want to protect the country and serve the military. But now, they're sacrificing, they're spending time away from their families, they're risking their lives, and they're not even being paid enough to where their families have money to eat at home. Would you want to be in the military across the country on the other side of the world, and you don't know that your wife and kids are going to be able to pay the mortgage or pay rent or even put dinner on the table because we're not paying them enough? All the while, again, we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars over to a corrupt country. And we touched on this in recent videos as well. But remember, SNAP benefits are getting cut by $80 or $90 per month. So at a time when inflation is out of control, food is costing more than ever, butter's up 60%, eggs are up 80%, even frozen vegetables. In the past, you might buy frozen vegetables to try to save money. Even frozen vegetables are up 18%, and people are going to have $80 to $90 less per month. So the military is telling people, oh yeah, just get on SNAP, get on food stamps. Even that's being cut. We kind of touched on this already. I got a note here. The Fed and bankers and talking heads on TV continue to talk about a soft landing. That's very unlikely. And it's kind of funny how in recent months, the economy has gotten worse. Inflation has gotten worse. There's nothing really optimistic happening, but now all of a sudden they're acting like a soft landing is more possible than ever. In the past 2 weeks, mortgage rates went from 5.99% to 6.75%. I know a lot of you guys are waiting for home prices to come down. I think that is going to happen, but I think it's probably going to happen slower than most of us would hope for or expect. I think spring and summer, we'll kind of see what winds up happening, and I think that may really kind of kick things into overdrive. But here's kind of a general stat. For every 1% interest rates go up, housing prices typically fall about 10%. So I think it's probably pretty likely within the next few months, definitely probably by the next Fed meeting, we're probably going to see mortgage rates head over 7%. And again, buyers and sellers right now are at kind of a stalemate. The sellers don't want to sell, the buyers don't want to buy at these prices and with these interest rates. And at some point, the only way that sales are going to start happening is if sellers start dropping prices, and that in turn, eventually buyers are going to say, okay, it's worth buying at these prices. Also, these home builders, they can't afford to sit on these homes. They can't afford to sit on these lots. They're already buying down interest rates. They're already taking money off the price of homes. Eventually, they're going to have to start to liquidate some of these homes, and that's going to drag down prices on the secondary market or used homes. And again, remember that flurry of articles we had talking about how mortgage rates were falling. Mortgage rates fall 4 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row. Now that mortgage rates are on the rise, how come you're not seeing that same flurry of articles? And here's one problem with buying a home right now, right? So a year ago, 2 years ago, you could have been able to afford, literally almost twice the home that you can afford today, just because interest rates are so high. So here's kind of the choice that you have. Let's say you were looking at buying a house for $500,000 or $550,000. If you were to want to maintain kind of that same payment with the higher interest rates, you're now probably going to be looking at a home that's $350,000 to maybe $375,000. So it's not a ton of inventory out there. So what do? If you want to be in that nicer home, that larger home, that home in a nicer area, you can maybe overextend yourself if you're able to still get a mortgage, and you can hope that maybe later on down the road rates come down. But again, it's not looking like rates are going to come down anytime soon. So maybe instead of doing that, you opt to buy that home for $350,000. But maybe 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, when interest rates do come down and mortgage rates do come down, now you're kind of kicking yourself because you're like, I really wish I was in a bigger home. I really wish I was closer to downtown, closer to my work. But selling a home is a pain in the butt, especially when you got a family. There's a lot of costs involved in selling a home. So do you want to buy a home today that's maybe a little bit less than you would want to then just 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road to have to buy the home that you truly want. So I think a lot of people are kind of sitting out of the housing market hoping that prices come down or hoping that interest rates wind up coming down. Let's see here. We kind of talked about what's behind the surge in retail sales. Okay, so here's the article from the Daily Mail. Daily Mail had an article, filthy homeless encampment is set up inside Chicago's O'Hare Airport with vagrants now living next to baggage exchange belts in the crime-ridden Windy City. Thousands of people are sleeping at O'Hare Airport terminals. Bodies are lying everywhere, some barely clothed. People are passed out. It looks like there may even be some dead people lying around. And again, people have entire camps set up near baggage claims. Is that a good look for Chicago when somebody lands in Chicago and they're like, the Windy City, Michigan Avenue, I'm going to go to a Bears game, and they just, walk into something that looks like a refugee camp? I don't want homeless people out freezing. I don't want them thrown in the streets, but the airport probably certainly is not the place for them. Speaking of Chicago, this is kind of local news, so I'm not sure if you guys would care about this, but the Chicago Bears are actually moving out of Chicago. They bought a property in Arlington Heights. Arlington Heights is a nice, pretty affluent northwest suburb. They used to have a racetrack out there. I mean, technically the racetrack still is there. It's actually a pretty nice racetrack. I used to sometimes go out there with friends on the weekends. It's a nice way, nice time to spend a day out in the sun. I'm not a big gambler, but I might, bet a buck or two on some horse races. They had live music, they had good food, and there's a huge property. So I don't know if you guys have been to Soldier Field. It's kind of a small field. The views in there aren't great. Chicago can never host a Super Bowl because it's just not a big enough stadium. There's not a whole lot of room for tailgating. I think they're going from like 17 acres to like 370 acres. With this new field, although I believe that's going to be about 10 years down the road before that's actually up and running. We talk about the decline of cities, right? You can't use cash, you can't spend cash in Chicago, or you'll be mugged. Even the Chicago Bears are leaving Chicago. They're going to be the Arlington Heights Bears, not the Chicago Bears. And we're starting to see a decline in a lot of these cities. I was just watching a Joe Rogan clip. It was him and Be Real from Cypress Hill, and they were kind of talking about the decline of Los Angeles and people leaving Los Angeles. And that kind of brings us perfectly into the next story. California's population dropped by 500,000, and the exodus continues. I think we're going to see this to continue even more so, right? Like if you live in California and you own a home, homes aren't selling in one day anymore. Homes are sitting on the market for a couple months. So even if you want to leave, you got to make arrangements with your job. You got to find a new job. You got to find a new area to move to, a new state to move to. It's a big task moving across the country or even moving a couple states over. And so I think a lot of people are making plans, and California is probably going to continue to see an exodus. Why are people leaving California? High taxes, high crime, poor home affordability, poor affordability overall, woke politics, strict beer cough lockdowns. Men are allowed in women's locker rooms. Men are allowed to participate in women's sports. More people are leaving, but again, it's a big jump to move, and I think people will continue to move. Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, he has largely ignored the Palestine, Ohio train crash derailment, and this was actually the screenshot of yesterday's video, though I actually didn't discuss this story in yesterday's video. But Mayor Pete, at a time when the eastern portion of the country has been completely polluted, rather than talking about that, Mayor Pete is giving speeches about how there's too many white male construction workers and how that's a problem. Following the Palestine, Ohio crash, we got a toxic chemical crash in Arizona, another one in Texas. Trains are derailing. Mayor Pete was a diversity hire. He has no experience in transportation. If I were Joe Biden and I wanted to hire somebody to run transportation for the entire country, I might tap the CEO of a railroad. I might tap the CEO of FedEx or UPS, somebody who has experience in large-scale logistics. But no, we get Mayor Pete, a guy whose experience is he can drive a car, and when he was mayor of South Bend, Indiana, they had like 11 buses. That's who we tap to kind of control all the transportation in this country. And what did he do during the supply chain crisis of 2020 or 2021? Well, he took 2 months off for parental leave. I think it's great that parents want to stay home with their kids and kind of bond with their babies. I think that's a good thing. But if that's something you want to do, maybe you decline the position as transportation secretary and say, I got to spend this time with my family. But instead, he sat at home chest feeding his child while shipping containers were being abandoned in neighborhoods. Ships were lined up, out at sea. It's been pretty much a complete disaster under him. Let's see, they tried to have a community meeting in Palestine, Ohio, but Norfolk Southern refused to attend, and I believe they had offered the town about $25,000, which comes to about $5,000 $5,000 per resident for destroying people's lives, potentially causing birth defects for people's future children, giving people cancer, ruining their community. And a lot of people dump on Russia, but if you look at after Chernobyl happened, they gave everybody new homes and they paid for health care for life for these people. And, these people in Palestine, Ohio, they're not even getting a hotel voucher. They're being told, oh, I know your water looks really weird. I know there's animals dying everywhere, but it's completely safe. Just go back home. It's kind of starting to look like this entire cleanup was done in a very poor way that was very bad for the environment, just to be able to get the trains running again. And another kind of crazy thing, the media and the government seem to be super concerned about misinformation, right? They want people to get good information. Well, why is it that the government, Mayor Pete, nobody's talking about this ecological disaster in Ohio, and where are people getting information? Where is the best information coming from? There's an engineer, kind of a younger Asian guy on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know his TikTok name. I've seen these videos reposted on like Instagram and Twitter. But this guy is kind of breaking down what these chemicals are, what happened, what are the impacts to the environment. Why is it that we have to go to TikTok to get good news and get information, and we're not getting it from the government? I wouldn't expect to get good information from the government, but the government and media like to act like they're the ones who should be giving us information. So kind of crazy. There was also a video that came out of a reporter being arrested for trying to attend a town hall meeting and actually report on this issue that's not being reported on. And I have heard that local media in Ohio is actually doing a pretty good job of covering this, but national media has pretty much completely ignored it. Okay, we're going to have to really kind of start tearing through here because I only got like a minute or two left. You guys remember Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills player who his heart stopped on the field? They had to revive him. You remember how a couple weeks ago, I talked about this in videos. You remember a couple weeks ago, he was supposedly at a Buffalo Bills game, except every time he was seen, he was surrounded by security. They had him up in a skybox or a press box, but he had like a big hoodie on. He had a face mask on. He had a hood over his face. And the only time they would show him straight on was like with a really grainy camera image with a blizzard blowing in front of him. But remember, he was raising his hands and cheering. I saw a video come out from him on Twitter yesterday, and he's laying in a bed on oxygen. So if several weeks after that video appeared, he's still in a bed on oxygen, I highly doubt, and a lot of people questioned and were told that they were stupid conspiracy theorists, but I definitely question that was really him if weeks later he's lying in a hospital bed. It doesn't look like he could get up and be up, standing, and cheering. We had a U.S. military helicopter, a Black Hawk helicopter, crashed near a highway in Huntsville, Alabama. Germany may be bringing back compulsory military service. Roku stock yesterday surged 25% on Roku picking up users during the holiday season. And I have two Rokus. I haven't been using them because I got smart TVs. But honestly, I was thinking about going back to my Roku. I kind of prefer the interface. It winds up working a lot faster than my smart TV. My smart TV has a lag. I also kind of think it's easier to navigate. I like that it's got voice controls. So it looks like Roku is starting to pick back up. The Zero Hedge article, the FAA issues a call to action. We've had a couple near misses with planes almost crashing. All these complex systems in this country are going down. And they basically were just telling people like, hey, aviation has had a pretty safe history in recent years. Like, let's make sure we continue that. And then, again, I got to get running, so we can't really get into this. But there was a Substack article written by Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Seymour Hersh. He recently said that the president of the United States would rather see Germany freeze than potentially Germany no longer supporting Ukraine. He's making the argument that Biden, when I think most people believe this, right? Like it's kind of common sense would tell you this is likely what happened, but that we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Because if Germany needed natural gas, they would probably get it from Russia. So we blew it up to kind of force Germany and force Europe to support Ukraine. And also there's a former CIA and Pentagon advisor, Jim Richards, who says that Biden blew up the Nord Stream 2. He also said, P.S. in the next 75 days, I predict Americans will face fuel shortages, widespread blackouts, empty grocery shelves, $1,000 energy bills, and drained retirement accounts. Sounds kind of crazy, sounds kind of doom and gloom, but again, earlier in this video we talked about the pastor who got a $900 gas bill in California. Elon Musk is seeking somebody to take over Twitter from him before the end of the year, and Microsoft has permanently disabled Internet Explorer. So that's the news for today. If you guys enjoyed it, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, drop a comment. I don't care what you say, but it helps the video in the algorithms. And if you actually do have something that you want want to share in terms of thoughts, comments, and opinions on today's stories. I would love to hear them. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button down below. And again, guys, I really got to get running, so I will catch you on the next video. Later. Peace.